So Mel Kiper comes out this morning on Get Up along with Tim Hasselbeck and Marcus Spears and talks about the Jets and their number 2 pick and potential trade options. And I thought this was very interesting what they had to say.
Let's live in a world for a moment here where they do what he said and what Mel you thinks they should do, which is that they stay with Sam Darnold. Who is on the phone with them right now? Who's going up to 2, Mel, to get that pick?
I don't think Carolina would be a team. You think about picking 8th. I'm going up to get Justin Fields at 3 for the Miami Dolphins. I think would like to move down and still get, say, a Jalen Waddle, outstanding wide receiver, a punt returner out of Alabama, electric.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle is nasty, no doubt.
Football player, but I think what the Jets would want to do if they move down, I think this is where you have to be careful if you're Joe Douglas. Move down where you can still get Kyle Pitts, Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, or Jalen Waddle.
You know, he made a good point there as far as Joe Douglas is concerned. I mean, obviously, probably us and others will be fighting to get up to that number 2 pick to try to make that trade. The only thing I would say with that is, like, if you really, really believe in Sam Darnold, like, if I'm Robert Saleh, that's a hard sell. I mean, obviously, Joe Douglas is going to be the person that ultimately makes that decision. And we know the Jets have, made poor decisions in the past. Sorry, Jets fans. But that would be a tough sell for me, especially if I'm coming in. I mean, obviously, the rookie quarterback situation could be as tough a sell, possibly. But at least I know I have a guy that is my guy when he comes in. But, as anything, everybody's got to be on the same page whenever they make that decision.
One of those 4, if you're moving down. So you're going with Darnold, you're moving forward with Sam, but you're moving off of 2, obviously, but you still get one of the elite pass-catching entities that helps Sam. You don't want to lose one of all those 4 by moving down. So get to a spot where you know you're going to get one of those 4, feel good about that. If you take Zach Wilson, this is my whole thing, you're going to probably trade Sam Darnold for a second-round pick, 49ers, Bears, Seahawks, whoever it may be. So you get a second-round pick. You got...
I wonder, does Mel Kiper even breathe? My God, I've never seen a human talk that fast before. That wasn't doing it for some kind of Guinness World Record. But, he made a good point again. The Jets are kind of in a situation where it's like, okay, the lesser of 2 evils. Like, if we draft a quarterback, we're kind of foregoing weapons. Now, obviously drafting is a science, so you could find, receivers and tight ends in later rounds. But if we take Sam Darnold, or Zach Wilson, rather, excuse me, there's a chance that he may end up being in the same situation as Darnold. I don't think anything can get worse than the Adam Gase coaching, but at the same time, you run that risk. I'm hoping that they think that it'll be a huge risk and they give us the pick.
Got the second pick, you're taking Zach Wilson. You're not going to bring in a Kyle Pitts, a Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, or a Jalen Waddle. So you get the young quarterback out of BYU, and you lose one. And I'm talking about 4 receivers, guys, that are, I talked about Pitts as once in a decade or 2. Chase.
I agree with that. I think Kyle Pitts is a once-in-a-decade player. I do wonder a little bit about his, position, what his true position is. We saw this with Jimmy Graham a few years back. It kind of makes you wonder, like, is his production going to be at such a high level that, he comes in and tries to demand wide receiver money? But, he may be the first person to flip, and to be able to get it, to flip the money like that from, a wide receiver to tight end. But who knows? I mean, it's just, and the only reason I'm even evaluating this is what they're talking about with the Jets is because these are scenarios that we could end up in, and we may not move from number 8. Kyle Pitts might be a realistic option. I would like to see if, obviously if we don't go quarterback, Patrick Surtain, Rashawn Slater, beef up the line even more. I know we just brought in some guys, that are free agents, but Penei Sewell, if he's still there, obviously I don't really think any of the receivers would make sense for us because of what we already have in our receiving core. I mean, we gave away, Curtis Samuel, and, really, I don't think we lost much of anything replacing him with. And now David Moore is definitely not Curtis Samuel, but the point is that, we're pretty robust at the wide receiver position. So I don't really think we'll be at play for any one of those guys.
Waddle and Smith are super elite. So these aren't just guys that you push up into the top 10 because they have great careers and they're pretty good. These are special players.
Now, see, on this one, he's got us mocked with moving up with the Dolphins to get Justin Fields. And while I don't think that would be necessarily a horrible choice, I got my own questions about Justin Fields. I think we all do. Justin's an all-world talent. I mean, that can't be taken away from him. Like, I think he was, player of the year in Georgia his senior year in school, and the most highly recruited player, besides Trevor. Of course, they were kind of 1 and 1A, if you will, 1 and 2, but I think more 1 and 1A. But it's easy, I guess, to say, because on one hand, I don't want to say the Ohio State situation really plays with Justin because he started out at Georgia, but left Georgia, went somewhere else, became successful, but in a system where we see a lot of quarterbacks successful that don't necessarily transition to the next level. I mean, that's a real thing, and it's something that you got to pay attention to. I don't know that Justin necessarily broke the mold when it comes to Ohio State quarterbacks, and really my only concern, because physically, I mean, the guy's got it. He's, they call him, baby Cam, but I think he could possibly be a little bit more accurate than Cam. Could be wrong. Don't kill me. But with him, I think it's more just the vocal stuff. Just quiet guys just don't work at the quarterback position. You can be quiet and play just about every other position on the field. We've seen quiet guys dominate in this league. I don't think Jeremy Chin's the loudest guy in the world. Now he gets pretty animated, but he's not Luke or anything like that. But sometimes the quiet, especially with the quarterbacks, man, you gotta be a talkative guy. I'll give you an example. I want to say it was either the AFC Championship or the divisional round game, right? McCole Hardman had I think he fumbled a kickoff or something maybe. And Patrick Mahomes, they showed on the sideline where he went up to him and was like, "Hey, man, you good? You're going to make a play in this game, man. Don't worry about it. Keep your head up." And the question I would ask is, how many times did you see Teddy do something like that last year? It didn't happen. We didn't even see Cam do that a lot. A lot of the team just kind of followed Cam's enthusiasm for what Cam would bring to the table for himself. But I don't remember too many times seeing him go to guys and, especially when things were down, because really the knock on Cam's career early on was he would get on the sideline and sulk, which I don't think that was a, complete story of what Cam was doing on the sidelines. I think it was just, what they would catch in the moment, and who likes losing, but that's a story for another day. The point I'm making is this, is when I see Justin on the sideline, I just wonder if he can be a guy that's that galvanizes the troops and get everybody to play up to his level, as I mentioned before. Or, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. So it remains to be seen.
4 guys. That's why it's incumbent upon the Jets to move down where they know they can still get one of those 4 guys.
What do you think, Sam, if they do decide to move forward with Sam Darnold, who's going up to 2 to get that quarterback? Well, I would agree with Mel. I think it would be the Carolina Panthers, the team that's in the most need of somebody. You think about the situation that Matt Rule finds himself in. They're starting to build a pretty good roster in Carolina, but they don't have a quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater is not the answer. And so
that's facts. One of the things that I love is seeing the moves that we made in free agency so far this year. We made a lot of bolstering moves to the defense. I think this defense has a potential, especially by the middle of the season, to be top 10. As a fan, I'm going to go on a stretch and say top 5. I know that sounds crazy, but when you think about some of the players that we brought in and the hunger that they'll have, man, it's something to be said for a guy. If you bring in a guy and pay him $100 million, you run the risk of him being comfortable. We saw that with Stephen Weatherly. He only made a couple $1 million and got comfortable, right? And that was his own admission. But when you bring in guys that know that their value is higher, but they're willing to take less money, like the Hassan Reddick pick to me is just fascinating. And the reason is because this guy would have commanded far more than we gave him on the market, but he came for what I believe 2 reasons. Number one is because he was sold on what Phil Snow was going to do defensively with the 3-4. Like, I really believe we're going to run a dedicated 3-4 next year, or kind of a mix, right? But I think the second reason he came was betting on himself, and also because of Matt Rule. He knows Matt Rule very well, which is a huge thing for Matt Rule. And shout out to Matt Rule for, his recruiting, situations and how he, handles himself with players and stuff like that. Like, I know he got killed a lot in the media last year for the Cam stuff. And to be quite honest with you, David Tepper put Matt Rule in a lot of situations that he really shouldn't have been in, especially for a rookie coach, but he handled it with class. And I appreciate that. So shout out to Matt Rule for that.
So, look, and we don't know who they love. If you love Justin Fields, then it makes sense to go race up to that spot so that you solve the quarterback problem.
Tim said something right there that I said on my live yesterday that I 1,000% agree with. Regardless of what I think, regardless of what you think, regardless of what anybody else thinks, whether it is Justin Fields, whether it's Zach Wilson if they move up and are able to get him, whether it's Mac Jones or Kellen Mond, for all I know, Kyle Trask. It could be any one of these guys. What I want to know more than anything else, the story that I hear coming out after the draft, I want to know that Tepper, Matt Rule, Scott Fitterer, quarterbacks coach Joe Brady, I want to know that they were all on the same page, that they were all in agreement with the pick. I want to see a video from like a year later, even if the guy seems like a bust. If he comes out and wins 3 games, I would love to see the video of them all clapping in the green room like we made the right decision. That's what I want to see, because there are certain things that, like when Robert Griffin was drafted, right? To come back and draft Kirk Cousins in the 3rd or 4th round, there was no room for Robert Griffin to have time to grow. Like, he had to be successful right away. And I just don't want that scenario for, one of these young quarterbacks. It's just not a good, especially in this NFL. I mean, we took time with Cam, and it seems like that was what, 2011? It seems like that's all but, gone now. Like, if you come look at the Tua situation, to think that the Dolphins this early would be looking to move off of Tua. Like, man, Peyton Manning, and I know that's a different example. Peyton Manning is a whole different animal, and the expectation for Peyton Manning was a lot different than it is for Tua, even though the whole tank for Tua thing was real last year and he was hyped up. But that's a whole different situation. But to be ready to move off of a guy after 1 year, that is crazy to me. I mean, unless the guy's just a off the field nightmare and it's just a guy that just, horrible in the locker room, or, a me guy, which I don't see from a guy like Tua at all. To be able to move off of a guy like that, like right away, that's just, man, I just hope that we don't become a franchise that does that same thing. Like, I understand when you have when you draft a Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray comes up right behind him and you change coaching philosophy and everything like that, that you want to try to make him successful. But I would argue that the Cardinals should have never drafted Josh Rosen in the first place. It's like they set our man up to fail, our old D coordinator to fail. But I digress.
That to me is a team that absolutely needs it. Look, Atlanta, they can go a couple more years with Matt Ryan. Are they in the quarterback business? I'm sure they are. But, they're not in the same type of need that you have to be doing it. That's why my answer would be Carolina.
I agree with that 1,000%. I saw a story where Atlanta had extended Matt Ryan or not extended him, restructured his contract or something to that degree, where it looks like they're going to go the next 2 or 3 years building around him, which I hope. But anyway, I can see a scenario where they could draft a Trey Lance, Justin Fields, somebody that can sit behind, but I don't really see them moving up or trying to, get past to draft Zach Wilson, because if you do that, you're pretty much telling Matt Ryan, hey, you're out the door. So really, this is a real thing, and it's getting me really excited, because you guys know I'm a Zach Wilson guy. I say it, time and time again, but I'm just excited, just the fact that Carolina, this is when I hear Scott Fitterer saying we're going to be in on every deal, we're going to be aggressive. I love this, because I don't think that this is coming out like this because of just talking points for them to have in the morning, talking about leading up to the draft. I really believe this comes out because this is probably research that they've done, or they've sent their PR people to say, hey, this is something that we're thinking about doing. And that's exciting.
And then, Marcus, really quickly, how would you, if this is what happens, if the Jets stick with Sam Darnold and trade out from that spot, and we're together on Friday morning, the morning after the draft, what are you going to say about how they handled the second pick?
I'm so glad they took Jamar Chase. I'm so glad that they took a guy that could.
Yeah, forget what he's talking about. So I pretty much think that's the end. I think that's very interesting that Mel Kiper would come out, talk about Carolina moving up to the 3rd or 2nd spot to draft a quarterback. Obviously, it's a position of need. We see what's going on. I mean, I think that all of us at one point or another were pretty souped about the Deshaun Watson opportunity. Don't look like that's going to happen at this point. Remains to be seen what's going to happen as far as his situation is concerned. But hopefully that works itself out between him and the people that are involved. But if that doesn't become a thing, it is exciting. I know we didn't get splash picks as far as the free agency is concerned. I absolutely love what we did do in free agency and the way that we built to our strengths and everything. But this could be a splash that the kind of excitement that we're waiting to see. And I was just looking at Zach Wilson and just watching some of the tape, and I'm just like, I know it's kind of a hit or miss situation, but man, you just kind of, the eye test tells you everything, right? I remember watching, being from South Carolina, watching Zion Williamson in high school, and a lot of people thought he was just like a dunker, like it was just, dunk, dunk, dunk or whatever. And, you could just look at this guy and tell he was just way more talented than everybody else, right? And then he goes to Duke and, does his whole thing there, whatever, hate Duke, whatever. But what he's doing now in the league is crazy, and I don't think there was a ton of people that could have saw him doing this fast. Like his offensive efficiency at this level of his career is nuts. Who's to say Zach Wilson couldn't be that same thing? Who's to say Justin Fields or Trey Lance couldn't be that? We just don't know. Like, you don't know how these guys are going to adjust to new coaching situations, to a guy like Trey Lance having more talent, around him than he even had at North Dakota State, even though they were the big dogs in their situation or whatever. You just don't know. You don't know how these guys are going to make adjustments and everything. And, on the opposite side, you don't know that these guys could be an absolute bust, and then we have to start all over. But either way, I'm excited to, get into it and just the opportunity whenever it presents itself. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button. And I'm John Farmer with One Carolina. I'm out.
Wake up in the morning, I'm focused in on what really matters. And these rappers still chatter as if it even matters. Stack money like books, I'm on my next chapter. Cause at the end of the day, what are you really after? 5% of my salary goes to charity. I'm engaged to success. Who'da known it would marry me?